We'll arrive at Stellar Sky City once we pass through that mountain range. Fan Li pointed towards the tall and precipitous mountain range in the distance, and there was a trace of a smile on her face. Yang Yi, who sat by Fan Li's side, frowned instead, and he stared at the mountain range while he spoke in a low voice. Which mountain range is that? Does it have a demon commander? A demon commander? Fan Li shook her head and said, It's called Green River Mountain Range. There are demon beasts there, but I've never heard of demon commanders residing there. Why? Do you feel something is strange about it? Yang Yi asked. How long would it take us to get to Stellar Sky City if we went around this mountain range? Fan Li's face became solemn, and she pondered deeply for a short while. It would take at least double the time. We can go around it if you think it's dangerous. Yang Yi shook his head instead. It'll waste too much time. We'll just go through it. Fan Li asked softly, Is it really all right? Yang Yi smiled and replied, I do indeed sense a feeling of danger here. However, the reason I asked was to find out if there's a shorter path and not because of fear. After the battle against the Eye of the Heaven Dao on Profounder Continent, he really didn't feel any reverence even if it was towards Saint Realm experts. Of course, it didn't represent that he looked down on them. After experiencing that battle, there were truly very few things which could arouse fear within him. Perhaps he couldn't defeat them, but he would absolutely not fear them. Fan Li glanced at him when she heard this, and then she nodded. Yang Yi. Meanwhile, Fan Meng suddenly walked out from within the carriage and sat on Yang Ye's left. At the same time, she very naturally put her arm around Yang Ye's arm and spoke softly. Do you think that we'll die? Yang Yi smiled. Are you afraid of death? I was very afraid before this. Fan Meng spoke softly. Yet now I'm not, because you're here with me. Yang Yi was quite curious. Why? Fan Meng raised her head to glance at him, and then she said, I don't know. In any case, I feel especially safe when I'm by your side. Yang Yi rubbed her head. Don't worry, we won't die. Fan Meng nodded and said, Yang Yi, can you tell me about your past? Fan Li's gaze descended upon him as well because she was very curious about his past as well. A good man never speaks about his past glory. There's nothing to tell. Yang Yi smiled. Just tell me. Fan Meng shook his arm and acted like a child. We might die at any moment in this situation. I don't want to die without knowing who you are. Yang Yi rubbed her head with a doting expression and said, Since it's like that, then I'll start bragging. When he spoke up to this point, Yang Yi looked towards the distance while ripples flickered in his eyes. In the past, many people feared me, and they called me the Sword Demon. At that time, the entire world would tremble when I went mad. The entire world would tremble? Fan Meng blinked. Really? Fan Li shook her head slightly, and there was a trace of helplessness in her eyes as she gazed at Fan Meng. She even believes such nonsense? I really want to know if it's true. Suddenly, a figure appeared not too far from the carriage. The Pegasus that pulled the carriage howled with fear, and then it started trembling incessantly on the spot. The black figure seemed like a shadow that was frozen in place, and it didn't have a shadow of its own under the sunlight. You finally couldn't restrain yourself from attacking? I'm really quite curious. Why didn't you launch a surprise attack? I've been waiting for you to do that. Yang Yi naturally recognized the shadow. It was that woman from the Dao Order, the person who the red-robed man called Xianxia. She replied, A surprise attack? Wouldn't that be exactly what you wanted? Yang Yi stood up slowly, and then he leaped off the carriage and walked towards her. Based on the state I'm in right now, I won't be able to kill you if you flee. However, you'll definitely die if you fight me. Do you believe me? She spoke in a low voice. You haven't comprehended sword intent, but you're even stronger than those sword cultivators who've comprehended sword intent. Besides that, you aren't any one of the three geniuses in the Exalt realm from the ancient sword school. So, who exactly are you? Yang Yi stopped moving and said, Would the Dao Order stop if I told you who I am? Impossible. She continued, You destroyed our hell's coffin. So, it's impossible for this to be resolved even if the sword master of the ancient sword school stepped forward and spoke on your behalf. That's exactly why I'm very curious. I'm curious where you got the confidence to dare to do that. Trust me, even those 3 geniuses of the ancient sword school wouldn't have dared to do so. Xianxia replied, If I didn't, then could it be that I should just lie in there myself? You have balls. She spoke seriously. You're much braver than many men that I've seen. I can't defeat you, so I won't waste time with you. But it's fine because the experts of my Dao order are here. Don't worry, both Lu Sha and that other fellow died in one-on-one battle with you, so my Dao order won't use numbers against you. My Dao order wants the world to know that our disciples aren't weaker to the disciples of the ancient sword school. Xianxia was amused when he heard this. As expected of the Dao order, I truly admire such ways. Actually, he'd thought about what would happen if the Dao order's disciples swarmed him. Besides awakening the 2 little snakes, he had no other way to deal with them. But he had never imagined that they would actually refrain from using numbers against him out of considerations for their honor. That was definitely an extremely good thing for him. When it was a one-on-one battle, especially a one-on-one battle with someone in the same realm of cultivation, Xianxia had really never feared anyone. You'll definitely die if the ancient sword school doesn't act. But if it does, then it represents that the ancient sword school intends to declare war with my Dao order. At that time, you won't be the only casualty. As soon as she finished speaking, her figure shook slightly and vanished on the SPT. Xianxia turned around and returned to the carriage. Speed up! He knew that the next disciples to come from the Dao order would definitely be strong. He would naturally not fear them if he was all alone, but he was traveling with Fan Li and Fan Meng. So, he had to take them somewhere safe as soon as possible. Fan Li had realized how severe the situation was as well. She immediately tossed an extreme-grade energy stone to the Pegasus. As soon as it finished consuming the energy stone, the carriage departed once more. This time, Xianxia didn't enter the carriage. He leaped up onto its roof while the ancient sheath appeared in his grasp. It didn't take long for them to enter Green River mountain range. Nay! Suddenly, the Pegasus raised its head and howled. After that, it seemed like it had encountered something terrifying and started howling madly on the spot. Fan Li and Fan Meng's expressions changed, and they simultaneously shot their gazes towards Xianxia. Meanwhile, Xianxia's figure flashed onto the Pegasus' back, and he placed his right hand on it. Threads of profound energy entered the Pegasus, and it didn't take long for the Pegasus to calm down under the effects of his violet profound energy. Rumble! Suddenly, the entire ground started to quake violently. Fan Li and Fan Meng were shocked. They raised their heads to look ahead, and their faces instantly turned ghastly pale when they saw the scene in the distance. Over 10,000 Pegasus horses were galloping madly towards them from afar. How terrifying was such a scene! Not to mention anything else. Just the aura they emanated was sufficient to horrify an Exalt Realm expert. A ferocious expression flashed through Xianxia's eyes as he walked towards them with his sword in hand. Fan Li and Fan Meng were shocked when they saw him do that, and Fan Meng was even about to charge over. However, Fan Li held her firmly. Fan Li embraced Fan Meng tightly and said, Don't go over there. We'll only be a burden to him. The gap between Xianxia and the stampede was growing shorter and shorter, and it was only around 100 m now. Suddenly, Xianxia vanished on the spot. Roar! At the same instant that he vanished, a few dozen Pegasus were instantly slashed into 2. Fan Li and Fan Meng focused their gazes and noticed that Xianxia had charged into the horde of horses. Swoosh! 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 3 rays of light crisscrossed through the horde, and then over 1,000 Pegasus fell to the ground. Xianxia didn't stop. His sword left his grasp, and it flickered incessantly through the surroundings. Every single time it flickered through the area, it took the heads of a few dozen Pegasus with it. Meanwhile, Xianxia ceaselessly smashed his bare fists against the horses, and every single swing would transform over a dozen into mush. It was a slaughter, a true slaughter. Fan Li and Fan Meng were flabbergasted. After all, most of the Pegasus were at the Exalt realm. However, they actually didn't even have the strength to fight back against Xianxia. While Pegasus were mostly docile and gentle, and they didn't possess formidable combat strengths. There were still over 10,000 of them. Human! Stop! Suddenly, a howl resounded, and then a middle-aged man appeared here. As soon as the middle-aged man arrived, all the Pegasus instantly stopped attacking Yang Yi and ran behind him. Yang Yi stopped attacking and turned around to gaze at the middle-aged man. You're the demon general of this mountain range, right? I don't think there's any enmity between us, and I was only passing through, so why are you attacking me like this? I'll blast your head apart if you don't give me a reasonable explanation. Earlier, that stampede clearly intended to kill them. If he wasn't someone who didn't fear the imposing aura emanated by such a group of Pegasus, then all three of them would have definitely been trampled to death. So Yang Yi was furious. How presumptuous! The middle-aged man pointed at Yang Yi and roared angrily. A tiny little Exalt Realm cultivator actually dares to speak like that before me. Since you refuse to talk properly, then just fucking die. Yang Yi interrupted the middle-aged man. As soon as he finished speaking, he'd arrived in front of the middle-aged man, and it was so quick that the middle-aged man hadn't even been able to react before Yang Ye's hand had clamped down on his throat. Stop! Human! I'll definitely give all of you a graveless death if you dare to kill him. Suddenly, another furious roar resounded. Just watch me! Ferocity appeared in Yang Ye's eyes as he squeezed down. Crack! The middle-aged man's neck was instantly twisted. Nay! All the horses in the surroundings howled. Human! You're courting death. Accompanying this furious roar was an old man who suddenly appeared in front of Yang Yi. And then he smashed his fist towards Yang Ye's head. Yang Yi didn't choose to dodge, and he similarly smashed his fist forward instead. Bang! An explosion resounded from the point of collision, and then countless fine cracks split open in space while both of them moved a few dozen steps back. There was astonishment in the old man's eyes because he hadn't expected to be blasted back by the physical strength of a human at the Exalt realm. After all, he was at the high rank of the Monarch realm. The old man was about to say something, but Yang Yi had instantly arrived in front of him, and then his fist smashed swiftly towards the old man. The old man was shocked, but he felt even more rage. So, he didn't dodge and similarly smashed his fist towards Yang Yi. Bang! It was like a thunderclap resounded here, and their fists immediately split apart upon colliding. However, Yang Yi pressed forward once more in the next moment, and then his fist smashed forward again. Bang! Bang! Muffled explosions resounded incessantly. While Yang Yi and the old man had only fought for around 10 breaths of time, their fists had collided over 100 times. In the beginning, they were equally matched, but it didn't take long for the old man to gradually fall into a disadvantaged position, because Yang Yi had stopped colliding directly with him. Once Yang Yi changed his strategy, the old man noticed to his astonishment that Yang Yi seemed like he could predict the old man's every move, so he'd suffered numerous blows. Fortunately, he possessed formidable physical defenses, so he'd been able to forcefully endure it. However, it caused him to be completely suppressed in the battle. Kill him! Suddenly, the old man roared furiously, and then the Pegasus horses in the surroundings started to attack Yang Yi again. With just that strength of yours? Yang Yi laughed coldly, and then his figure pressed forward towards the old man before smashing his fist forward. The old man was slightly shocked and hurriedly moved his fist forward to collide with Yang Ye's punch. Meanwhile, a wisp of ferocity flashed through the corners of Yang Ye's mouth before a ray of cold light flashed on Yang Ye's fist. Hiss! The old man's fist instantly flew into the air. Ah! A shrill cry resounded from the old man. Meanwhile, Yang Yi had arrived in front of him, and then a dagger was pressed against the old man's throat. The horses instantly stopped attacking and didn't dare take another step forward. Human! You cheated! The old man roared furiously, but he didn't dare move because he was very afraid that his throat would be slit. Cheating? Yang Yi laughed coldly. You ordered that many Pegasus to attack me, yet you still dare to say that I cheated? You! The old man intended to say something, but Yang Yi didn't waste his breath on the old man at all. He just waved the dagger, and then one of the old man's arms flew off into the air. Human! I'll kill you! The old man roared with fury. Yang Yi waved his right hand again, and then a cold glow flashed before the old man's other arm flew off as well. Human, human, human. The old man howled incessantly, but it didn't take long for him to be unable to make another sound, because Xianxia's hand had clamped down on the old man's throat, and then he waved his right hand once more, causing one of the old man's legs to fly off. The old man opened his eyes wide, and they were completely bloodshot. This time there was a strong sense of terror within them. As for the Pegasus horses in the surroundings, they were terrified to the point of moving backwards incessantly. Right when Yang Yi was about to wave his hand once more, a voice suddenly resounded from deep within the mountain range. Human, you've won. Yang Yi raised his head to look towards a mountain in the distance. I want an explanation. A short moment of silence ensued before the voice resounded once more. The Tao Order asked us to stop you here. Hiss! Yang Yi suddenly waved the dagger, and the old man's head flew into the air. Yang Yi looked towards the mountain and spoke fiercely. Who do you think you are? You actually dared to interfere in the business of my ancient sword school and the Tao Order? Human, don't go too far. The voice was quite gloomy. Too far. Yang Yi laughed coldly, and then he flicked his wrist before a sword appeared in his grasp. He continued, Didn't you want to stop me here? All right, I won't leave today. Let's see if I can slaughter all the demon beasts in this mountain range before the Tao Order's experts arrive. Of course, you're a half-saint, so you can attack as well. But would you dare? Presently, everyone took him to be a disciple of the ancient sword school, so he naturally had to use it well. Of course, he didn't fear the demon commander even if he couldn't use the ancient sword school's name. After all, if he was willing to pay a certain price, then his current strength was even sufficient to kill a half-saint. Human, do you think my demon race is weak? The demon commander's voice carried a trace of killing intent. The demon race? Can you even represent the entire demon race? Was it the demon race that told you to interfere in the business of my ancient sword school and the Tao Order? Or do you think that my ancient sword school is weak? As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi waved the sword in his hand. An ray of light sprayed out from it. Over 100 horses before him were instantly transformed into corpses. How presumptuous of you! A furious roar resounded from within the mountain range, and then a huge palm tore through space, and it smashed down towards Yang Yi. You're the one who's being presumptuous. Suddenly, another furious shout resounded, and then a ray of light flashed out from the space in front of Yang Yi. It stabbed the enormous palm, and then the palm was instantly sliced into two. The ancient sword school. The voice which came from within the mountain range sounded astounded. Yang Yi had a solemn expression on his face as well, because he wasn't the one who released that strand of sword energy. It was someone else who'd torn space open and teleported it over here. He'd once possessed the 3rd level of the heaven rank in sword intent, and he could accomplish that in the past, but he couldn't now. He was far from being capable of that right now. So, he knew that it belonged to at least a high-rank half-saint. You're the disciple that old man Gu took recently? Not bad, not bad, that old fellow really does have quite the discerning gaze. Your master is forging a sword behind closed doors, so he can't care for you right now. While we don't know why you've entered into conflict with the Tao Order, you don't have to worry. It's a matter between our ancient sword school and the Tao Order. If a third party dares to interfere, then my ancient sword school will definitely slaughter them without mercy. Kid, so long as you're able to return to the ancient sword school with your life intact, then the ancient sword school will definitely protect you. A voice resounded from within the spatial rift, and it didn't take long for the rift to close once more. Yang Yi had a rough understanding of the ancient sword school's intentions. It had definitely taken him to be Taoist Gu's disciple, and that was why that half-saint from before had lent him a hand. Besides that, if he wanted to survive, then he had to return to the ancient sword school. Why did the ancient sword school act in this way? Actually, Yang Yi knew the answer. Now, this matter wasn't just something between him and the Tao Order, it was something between the ancient sword school and the Tao Order. His life and death were related to the honor of the Tao Order and ancient sword school. If he returned alive to the ancient sword school, then it proved that the younger generation of the Tao Order was inferior to the ancient sword school. So, the ancient sword school would gain face while the Tao Order would lose face. Moreover, once he died at the hands of the Tao Order's disciples, then it would be the ancient sword school who had its face slapped. It could be considered to be a battle between the ancient sword school and the Tao Order, and he'd become the key to the battle. He fully understood what that expert from the ancient sword school meant. If he wanted to live, then he had to return to the ancient sword school, and he had to bring honor and glory to the ancient sword school. It was a path to life, but it was no easy path. Because under such circumstances, the Tao Order would definitely dispatch its extraordinary geniuses to kill him. Besides that, he had another huge problem, and it was that he wasn't a disciple of the ancient sword school at all. I wonder how they would look if they found out that I'm pretending to be a disciple of their sect. Xianxia laughed bitterly, and then he restrained his thoughts. He didn't have any choice right now because he intended to head there and look for Lu Wanner as well. Xianxia tightened his grip on his sword, and then walked towards the depths of the mountain range. Human, what are you doing? The demon commander's voice carried a trace of rage when he noticed that Xianxia seemed to have no intention to stop. But there was even more fear in his voice. Didn't you want to keep me here? I'll stay here right now. Isn't that exactly what you wanted? Xianxia laughed coldly. A short moment of silence ensued, and then the demon commander's voice resounded again. Since you're a disciple of the ancient sword school, then we naturally wouldn't stop you again. You can leave. I should leave just because you said so? Xianxia stomped his right foot against the ground, and the entire ground quaked. All I'll say is that if you can't satisfy me today, then I won't leave. The demon commander spoke in a low voice. Human, my demon race isn't something you can just bully. It was you who tried to bully my ancient sword school first. As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia flashed into the group of horses, and then he swung his sword swiftly. A ray of light flashed before numerous Pegasus horses were slashed into two. Human, stop! The demon commander's roar resounded from within the mountain range. However, Xianxia showed no signs of stopping, and another few hundred of them perished. The demon commander's voice resounded once more. 100 Exalt Realm Inner Cores. Xianxia stopped and said, Are you trying to give alms to a beggar? 100 Monarch Realm Inner Cores. Otherwise, I'll come take it myself. 100. The demon commander was exasperated. Do you think they are rocks? Human, I'm telling you, you better not go too far. Xianxia replied, Yes or no? The demon commander spoke in a low voice. 10. 10 is my limit. Xianxia made a counteroffer. 50. 20. The demon commander's voice was trembling slightly. If you refuse, then just kill them. Kill as many as you can. 20 Monarch Realm Inner Cores and 100 Exalt Realm Inner Cores. If you try to bargain with me again, then I'll really do it. The demon commander fell silent. Swoosh! A ray of light flashed, and then a few dozen horses crashed to the ground again. Yes or no? Xianxia's sword was trembling violently, and a ray of light was flickering incessantly on it. Human, I'll remember this. As soon as the demon commander finished speaking, 20 Monarch Realm Inner Cores and 100 Exalt Realm Inner Cores appeared in front of Xianxia. You'll remember this? Xianxia laughed coldly and said, Don't worry, I'll definitely pay you a visit in the future. As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia didn't speak another word. He just took the inner cores and entered the carriage. He smiled when he saw Fan Li and Fan Meng staring at him, and the viciousness on his face had vanished. Why are you looking at me like that? Is it because you think I'm very strong? Fan Meng hurriedly nodded while Fan Li nodded slightly as well. The scene from before where Xianxia slaughtered the horde of Pegasus horses, killed 2 demon generals, and even threatened a demon commander was undoubtedly extremely shocking to the two of them. At this moment, Xianxia seemed even more mysterious to them. Fan Li glanced at Xianxia while a trace of bitterness could be seen on the corners of her mouth. She said to herself, how laughable. I actually treated him like that in the past. If it wasn't for little Meng, I would probably be dead by now. She didn't know anything about Xianxia's past, but based on their time together, She knew that Yang Yi was definitely a ruthless person, especially towards his enemies. So, she felt very fortunate right now. Because if Yang Yi didn't have a good impression of Fan Meng, then not to mention her, even Fan Meng might have been implicated because of her. In the carriage, Yang Yi withdrew the 20 Monarch Realm inner cores and 100 Exalt Realm inner cores. Fan Li explained, the pure energy contained within the Monarch Realm inner cores are comparable to 5,000 extreme-grade energy stones. As for the Exalt Realm inner cores, they are comparable to around 1,000. However, their value is far from that. For example, it would take at least 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones to buy a single Monarch Realm inner core. After all, it's very rare. Yang Yi nodded and put them away. Inner cores from demon beasts weren't like energy stones, and it was truly quite a waste to just absorb them. Moreover, he didn't want to just swallow them. After all, they weren't tasteless like energy stones. They carried a dense smell of blood, and he didn't want to torture himself like that. Of course, the most important reason was that he'd temporarily given up on charging into the Monarch Realm. According to the woman from before, the Tao Order wouldn't dispatch experts above his realm of cultivation in order to regain the face it had lost. In other words, the Tao Order's experts who came for his life would only be Exalt Realm cultivators. But if he attained the Monarch Realm, then it would be Monarch Realm experts that came after him. His strength would improve upon attaining the Monarch Realm, but it wouldn't be very helpful in the end. After all, he couldn't use too much of his profound energy right now. So, he decided to improve his physical body instead and restore his physical body to the Half-Saint Realm. Opponents at the Exalt Realm were much easier to deal with than Monarch Realm experts. That didn't represent that he feared the Monarch Realm experts of the Tao Order. It was because he was very clearly aware of his objective, and it was to take Fan Meng and Fan Li somewhere safe before meeting Lu Wanner. Yang Yi withdrew 5,000 extreme-grade energy stones and started absorbing them like a madman. Outside the carriage, Fan Li and Fan Meng sat side by side. Fan Meng wrapped her hand around Fan Li's arm as she asked softly, "Big sister, do you think the Fan clan will be fine?" Fan Li looked towards the direction of the Fan clan. While both of them had been used by the Fan clan and even abandoned. But it was still their home in the end, so how could they just cut it off from their lives just like that? However, Fan Li wasn't an indecisive person as well. She quickly restrained her thoughts and said, "In the past, I felt that grandfather and the others really intended to allow us to take control of the Fan clan. But what happened that day completely jolted me awake. The reason they let me manage the Fan clan was because of my ability in management of the clan. But once I had a better use, they didn't hesitate to throw me away. In short, the Fan clan isn't our home from now on." Fan Meng remained silent for a long time before she said, "Big sister, then where will we go?" Fan Li rubbed Fan Meng's head and said, "Your natural talent in the Sword Dao isn't bad. You didn't have someone to guide you in the past, and that was why your natural talent was buried. So you must work hard and join the ancient sword school. Only then would I be truly able to rest at ease." Fan Meng hesitated for a while before she said, "Big sister, why? Why don't we just stay with Yang Yi?" "All right." Fan Li shook her head. "Little Meng, don't ever have such thoughts from now on." Fan Meng was puzzled. "Why? Perhaps we are just people transient acquaintances in his life." Fan Li spoke softly. Actually, she was very clearly aware that it wasn't just a possibility, it was definite. She was able to discern that Yang Yi didn't have any feelings of attraction towards Fan Meng. All he had was the feelings of an older brother to a younger sister. However, it did allow her to heave a sigh of relief because she didn't want Fan Meng to stay with Yang Yi. Yang Yi was someone who was too dangerous. Moreover, she didn't feel that her younger sister could keep him by her side. If Yang Yi didn't die, she believed that a person like Yang Yi would definitely rise up in the world. Transient acquaintances. Fan Meng understood what her older sister meant. A long time later, she raised her head and gazed at her older sister. "I don't want to be that," Fan Li replied. "Then work hard on becoming stronger." Fan Meng nodded while determination covered her little face. Night. The air was still while moonlight rained down from above, and it covered the mountains in a thin silver glow. The carriage stopped. Big sister, why is it so quiet? Fan Meng sized up the surroundings. At this moment, they were in a forest that was covered in ancient trees, and only a sliver of moonlight could pass through the gaps between their leaves. So, the visibility here was quite low, and they could only see a blurry image of the surroundings. Fanli said, "We'll arrive at Stellar Wind City once we pass through this forest. Looks like someone doesn't want us to get there. We heard that a disciple of the ancient sword school destroyed a Hell's Coffin from the Tao Order. We were very curious, so we came here just to have a look." Suddenly, a voice resounded in the quiet forest, and then two young men and a woman appeared within their fields of vision. There was a small character embroidered on their chests. "The Ocean of Clouds Academy," Fan Li exclaimed. She hadn't expected that they would actually be from the Ocean of Clouds Academy. The eyes of the young man who led the group lit up when he saw Fan Meng and Fan Li, and he said, "Tisk, tsk. I never expected that there would actually be two goddesses like these in such a remote place." When he spoke up to this point, he took a step forward and bowed slightly to them. "I'm Lin Shuhai from the Ocean of Clouds Academy. It's nice to meet you, goddesses. We dare not accept such praise." Fan Li didn't dare act disrespectfully. She immediately walked off the carriage with Fan Meng and bowed in return before she said, "Greetings, young Master Lin. I'm Fan Li, and this is my younger sister." Fan Li. Lin Shuhai sized them up, and then he grinned. "What a nice name. I wonder what's your relationship with Yang Yi, who's within the carriage right now." Fan Li's beautiful brows knit together slightly because it made her feel slightly uncomfortable. Lin Shuhai hurriedly spoke when he saw her frown. "Miss Fan, don't misunderstand. I wasn't trying to imply anything. It's just that you should be aware that Yang Yi has irreconcilable enmity with the Tao Order. If both of you continue staying by his side, then you'll definitely be dragged down into it. Why don't you leave with us instead? Don't worry. I, Lin Shuhai, will definitely keep both of you safe." Fan Meng was about to speak when Fan Meng suddenly spoke coldly. "We belong to Yang Yi." As soon as she finished speaking, Fan Meng blushed. While she was young, she was no fool. Lin Shuhai's gaze towards her made her feel very comfortable, so she naturally knew what he wanted. Fan Li glanced at Fan Meng, and then she shook her head slightly but didn't refute it. Since Fan Meng had been able to discern, she naturally had been able to do the same. However, she didn't want to offend Lin Shuhai because he was from the Ocean of Clouds Academy. Lin Shuhai's face stiffened slightly when he heard her, whereas the man by his side started roaring with laughter. "Shuhai, they already belong to someone. You lost before it even began." "Ha ha ha." Lin Shuhai spoke flatly. "Du Shoya, we were betting on whether they would become mine. It doesn't matter whether they belong to someone else or not." "Then continue. Continue. Let me witness the ability of the number one lady killer in the academy." Du Shoya roared with laughter. "We didn't come here to tackle girls." Meanwhile, the woman spoke abruptly. "Once Senior Xiaoyu gets here and deals with Yang Yi, then wouldn't both of you be able to play with them as you wish? Qing Yin is right." "Ha ha ha." Lin Shuhai chuckled, and then he gazed at Fan Li and Fan Meng. "I cherish beauties, so, if you're willing to come over to my side, then I guarantee your safety. If you insist on staying with Yang Yi, then he. Once Yang Yi is dead, based on how the Tao Order does things, your lives will be beyond miserable. The heavens are benevolent." Fan Meng suddenly said, It's best for all of you to leave right now. Otherwise, your heads will be separated from your bodies." She'd noticed that Yang Yi loved to behead his enemies. "We'll lose our heads?" Lin Shuhai roared with laughter. "If Senior Xiaoyu hadn't told us that he intends to take Yang Ye's head on his own, I would have killed him right now." Fan Meng intended to say something, but Fan Li took Fan Meng's hand and shook her head. They hadn't witnessed how terrifying Yang Yi was, so they wouldn't believe Fan Meng no matter what she said. "How about we deal with them first?" Du Shoya spoke abruptly. "While Senior Brother Xiaoyu told us not to touch Yang Yi, he didn't tell us not to touch these women. To be honest, I haven't touched a woman for half a month, and I can't take it any longer." "That's exactly what I was thinking." Ha ha ha. Lin Shuhai's figure flashed as soon as he finished speaking, and he instantly arrived before Fan Meng and Fan Li. After that, he stretched out his hands and grabbed at them. Bang! A muffled bang resounded before a figure went flying, and it just happened to descend before Du Xiuya and Qing Ying. Both of them were instantly stunned because while Du Xiuya wasn't dead, his current state was worse than death. His stomach had warped severely, and shattered internal organs were spraying out incessantly from his mouth. Both of them looked up, and they'd just done so when a black shadow flashed before them, and then they felt something press down on their throats. Yang Yi, stay your hand. Suddenly, the space in the distance trembled, and then a middle-aged man walked out from within it. Yang Yi, it was their mistake to interfere in the business of your ancient sword school and the Tao order. Hand them over to me, and I'll definitely punish them upon taking them back to the academy. Yang Yi glanced at the middle-aged man and spoke indifferently. 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones for a life. The middle-aged man's face fell. I'm an instructor of the academy. Yes or no? Yang Yi interrupted the middle-aged man and said, Don't try to threaten me. I dared to destroy the Tao Order's Hell's Coffin. So there's nothing I wouldn't dare to do. The middle-aged man spoke gloomily. Yang Yi, do you know what you're doing? Crack. Suddenly, the sound of bones breaking resounded. Yang Yi relaxed the grip of his left hand, and then Du Xiuya's figure fell to the ground. However, his head was still in Yang Ye's grasp. Yang Yi turned around to gaze at the middle-aged man and said, Now, it's 20,000 extreme-grade energy stones for a life. Yes or no? I'll give it to you. The middle-aged man hadn't even spoken when the woman in Yang Ye's grasp spoke in a hoarse voice. Yang Yi withdrew his gaze from the middle-aged man and gazed at her while a slight smile curled up onto the corners of his mouth. You're much more sensible. The woman gazed at Yang Yi with terror in her eyes. Actually, she was frightened out of her wits. After all, she was at the Exalt realm as well, just like Yang Yi was. However, she noticed that she didn't even have the ability to fight back against Yang Yi. Yang Yi let go of her once he received a spatial ring from her, and she instantly slumped to the ground. Yang Yi walked over to Lin Shuhai, who was still breathing. At this moment, Lin Shuhai was looking at him as well, but just like the woman, his eyes were filled with terror. Suddenly, the middle-aged man spoke in a low voice. I'll pay 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones. I'm not selling this one. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi suddenly kicked Lin Shuhai's stomach, and then the latter was blasted away. You're courting death. A terrifying aura exploded out from the middle-aged man, and then it enveloped down towards Yang Yi. You're just at the monarch realm. What are you being so noisy for? As soon as Yang Yi finished speaking, he'd appeared before the middle-aged man, and then the middle-aged man felt a hand tighten around his throat. You! Terror appeared in the middle-aged man's eyes as well. He hadn't imagined that a mid-rank monarch realm expert like him would actually be so helpless before Yang Yi. Suddenly, the space not too far from them trembled violently, and then an old man in a white robe appeared here. He was a half-saint, and he was even a high-rank half-saint. The old man sized up Yang Yi before he said, That old goat Gu was bragging to everyone that he took someone with great promise as his disciple. I thought he was just bragging. But now it would seem like he really has. Senior, you know my master? Yang Yi was very well aware that he had to use the ancient sword school's name right now. Of course. Yang Yi released the middle-aged man and said, I have to give Senior face. Senior, please do tell the younger generation of your academy that they can come looking for trouble with me, but it's best that they bring more energy stones with them. Otherwise, I'm afraid they won't be able to return. You really are arrogant. The old man continued. If you survive, then pay a visit to my academy. My academy will allow you to realize that there's always someone stronger in this world. Yang Yi replied, I definitely will. We'll be waiting for you. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man waved his right hand and vanished along with the middle-aged man and the woman. You've become even stronger. Suddenly, the woman from the Tao Order appeared here. Go tell the Tao Order that, if they want to kill me, then send someone strong. Stop sending these useless pieces of trash to waste my time. Besides that, it's best if they bring more energy stones. I am very poor. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi turned around and walked towards the carriage. The woman watched Yang Ye's group leave on the carriage, and she stood there for a long time before leaving. Fan Meng wrapped her hand around Yang Ye's arm as she asked softly, Yang Yi, you're still at the high rank of the Exalt realm. Yet why do I feel like you're much stronger than before? Yang Yi smiled. He was naturally much stronger. After he consumed almost 20,000 extreme-grade energy stones, he'd finally restored his physical body to the strength of a half-saint. Now, he was at the Exalt realm in Cultivation, but his body was at the half-saint realm. Now, he only had to resolve the problem with his meridians, and then half-saints would be like helpless chickens waiting to be slaughtered by him. We're here. Suddenly, Fan Li's voice resounded. Yang Yi looked forward, and he saw a huge city lying not too far away like a sleeping beast. Moreover, there were endless mountains surrounding the entire city. Yang Yi suddenly frowned. Fan Li asked, "What is it?" Yang Yi replied, "Stellar Sky City hasn't been breached, but it's about to." Stellar Sky City. At this moment, Stellar Sky City was in a mess. More than half of its walls were destroyed while mountains of corpses covered the city walls and the area around it. There were corpses of demon beasts, but most were human. Li Qingyi and Li Maozhen were standing on the city walls, and an old man with snow-white hair stood before them. The white-haired old man spoke in an indisputable tone. "Qingyi, Maozhen, both of you leave through the tunnels later." Li Maozhen coughed a few times before he laughed bitterly. "Grandfather, you're going to make both of us unable to live in peace forever. Both of you'll live in peace if you stay, but countless people of our city will die with everlasting regret." The old man sighed. "Qingyi, Maozhen, both of your natural talents aren't bad, especially Maozhen. Unfortunately, Li Xuanji, failed to protect you well and allowed you to be poisoned by someone. It destroyed your entire future, and it destroyed the future of our city." Damn it! Damn it! Li Maozhen said. "So, it's pointless for me to hang on to life. My Li clan would truly be without an heir if you die." Li Xuanji continued, "Maozhen, Qingyi, don't be stubborn. Our Li clan would only have hope for the future if both of you stay alive, and only then would you have the chance to avenge us. But if you die, then who will avenge my Li clan?" Li Maozhen fell silent. "Li Xuanji, I'll leave a small bit of your bloodline intact if you surrender. If you don't, then the day the city is breached is the day your Li clan's line ends." Suddenly, an old man in a linen robe appeared in the distant sky, and there was a completely pitch-black and enormous wolf beneath the old man. "Yu Tsongping, do you think that I, Li Xuanji, am a 3-year-old? Li Xuanji spoke coldly. "With the enmity between your Beastmaster sect and my Stellar Sky City, my Li clan would probably be instantly slaughtered by all of you if we are to surrender. Why waste your breath on him? Let's just attack and kill." Meanwhile, a short-haired old man appeared by Yu Tsongping's side, and there was a broken saber hanging on the old man's waist. The broken saber, Yun wrenching. Li Xuanji's gaze descended onto the short-haired man, and he spoke in a heavy tone. "There's no enmity between my Stellar Sky City and your broken saber villa. So, I'm very curious why you would interfere in the enmity between the Beastmaster sect and my city. Do you even have to ask?" Yun wrenching spoke coldly. "Stellar Sky City has 4 low-grade spirit veins, while my broken saber villa and the Beastmaster sect only have 1 each. Tell me, how could we possibly not covet it? Of course, that's not the true reason. The true reason is that someone wants your Stellar Sky City destroyed." "Ha ha ha! Who exactly did my Stellar Sky City offend?" Li Xuanji spoke in a low voice. "Me!" Suddenly, an icy cold voice resounded from the sky, and then a woman shot through the sky towards them while standing on the back of a black eagle. "Young Miss Ming." Li Xuanji's expression changed slightly, because it was the daughter of Martial Enlightenment City's governor. Moreover, it was a gold-rank sect. "It's you." Li Maozhen frowned when he saw her. The woman's gaze fell on Li Maozhen as she said, Li Maozhen, you never expected me to be the daughter of Martial Enlightenment City's governor, right? You refused me in public that day, and I told you that I'll make you pay a price you'll never be able to endure. Now you've been crippled, and your family is about to be annihilated because of you. Ha ha ha. There was a trace of madness in the woman's eyes, but there was a mix of various other emotions as well. So it was you who did all of it. Li Maozhen closed his eyes and clenched his fists tightly. Don't you hate me? Yes, I want you to hate me. I want you to hate me forever. The woman spoke ferociously. Kill them. Kill everyone from the Li clan besides Li Maozhen. All right. Unrivaled laughed coldly and was about to attack. However, a carriage suddenly dashed over from afar. You're courting death. A disciple from the Beastmaster sect charged towards the carriage. However, he hadn't even reached it before he was blasted flying, and he transformed into a pile of mush. Yutsongping and Unrivaled's expressions changed slightly. They exchanged glances and saw a trace of seriousness in each other's eyes. Because that disciple who charged at the carriage just now was a cultivator at the high rank of the Exalt realm. But he'd been instantly obliterated. The carriage stopped, and then a man and two women walked out from within it. Li Qingyi exclaimed, Yang Yi. Yang Ye's name was still quite unfamiliar to the people here. After all, it was quite a remote part of the entire prefecture. Yang Yi glanced at the people here, and then his gaze descended onto Li Maozhen. Brother Li, allow me to use the teleportation formation within the city. Li Maozhen gazed at Yang Yi for a short while before he said, That's not a problem. Thank you. Yang Yi, Fan Li, and Fan Meng started walking towards Stellar Sky City. However, there were many standing in their way. Yang Yi gazed at Yutsongping and Unrivaled. I'm just passing through. I don't want to interfere in your business. Yutsongping gazed at Yang Yi for a short while before he said, Let him pass. Don't. Suddenly, a voice resounded from the horizon, and then an old man arrived here. It was none other than Yizhan who'd fled that day. Yizhan said, Brother Yun, do you know who he is? He continued before they could answer him, Brother Yu, he's the one who killed over a dozen Exalt realm cultivators and a Monarch realm cultivator of your Beastmaster sect. Moreover, it was he who chopped off your granddaughter, Xianxia's arm. Besides that, it was he who called your son, Brother Yun. A ferocious expression immediately appeared on both Yutsongping and Unrivaled's faces when they heard him. Yutsongping spoke fiercely. Chop him into pieces but keep the women alive. Swoosh! A ray of black light flashed through the sky, and then a few hundred disciples of the Beastmaster sect and Broken Saber Villa were instantly transformed into corpses. His life belongs to me, Xiaoyu. His women belong to me, Xiaoyu as well. A black-robed man arrived here. All of them looked towards the source of the voice, and they saw a black-robed man walking through the sky towards them with a black spear in his hand. Every single step he took caused space to tremble before him, and it seemed like space itself couldn't endure his footsteps. Yutsongping was furious, and he was about to attack, but the woman from Martial Enlightenment City suddenly moved over to greet the black-robed man. Senior Xiaoyu, what are you doing here? The woman was rather respectful. Senior. Yutsongping and the others were shocked when they heard this word. They knew that young Miss Ming was from the Ocean of Clouds Academy, so since she called him senior, then it meant he was from the academy as well. Oh, it's junior sister Ming Zhan Shui. Xiaoyu nodded lightly before he gazed at Yang Yi. Someone destroyed my Dao Order's Hell's Coffin. As a disciple of the Dao Order, how could I not come here? Ming Zhanshui gazed at Yang Yi with slight astonishment. He's that disciple of the ancient sword school. A disciple of the ancient sword school. Yutsongping and the others instantly revealed grim expressions when they heard this. After all, they hadn't imagined that this ugly young man was actually from the ancient sword school. Regardless of whether it was the Ocean of Clouds Academy, the Dao Order, or the ancient sword school, every single one of them were existences that they couldn't afford to offend. As for their revenge, they naturally wanted to get it. Especially Unrivaled because he'd lost his son. So how could he be willing to just give up on taking revenge? However, He understood that he absolutely couldn't act against Yang Yi. Otherwise, the entire Broken Saber Villa would be annihilated in an instant. Xiao Yu laughed coldly and said, "While the ancient sword sect has always been enemies with my Dao order, there really hasn't been anyone who dared to destroy the Hell's Coffin of my Dao order. Even the Sword Emperor Lu Wan'er, who'd said to be a genius that's rare to come by in 10,000 years, wouldn't dare do so. However, I never imagined that someone with no reputation at all would dare to. Does your boldness come from skill, or is it ignorance?" Ming Xianxia moved aside because she couldn't afford to offend someone from the Dao order. But in the same way, she couldn't afford to offend someone from the ancient sword school as well. The only thing she could do was remain silent and help no one. Otherwise, if she dared to help this fellow from the Dao order, then countless disciples of the ancient sword school would definitely make life worse than hell for her once she returned to the academy. Yang Yi patted Fan Meng on the head and said, "Both of you enter the city first." Fan Meng glanced at Xiao Yu and the others before she nodded. She knew that she would be of no help if she stayed. "Looks like you really know how to enjoy yourself." Xiao Yu laughed coldly. "Don't worry, I won't kill you right away. I'll make you watch what happens to the two of them. I'll allow you to realize what's the consequences of daring to insult my Dao order." Yang Yi gazed at Xiao Yu with disdain. "Men should settle things with their fists, yet you intend to use women. If the Dao order is filled with trash like you, then all I can say is that I'll all who come. You'll kill all who come? Ha ha ha." Xiao Yu roared with laughter for a while, and then he said, "When did another arrogant sword cultivator appear in the ancient sword school? Since you're so confident, then why don't we make a bet? 10 moves. If I can't defeat you in 10 moves, then you will kneel down before Stellar Sky City and shout that your ancient sword school is inferior to my Dao order, alright? Similarly, if you're able to resist 10 moves of mine, then I'll be the one who kneels and shouts that my Dao order is inferior to your ancient sword school." Xiao Yu was very well aware that the incident related to Yang Yi had aroused the attention of the Dao order's higher-ups. It could be said that the person who resolved the matter and brought glory to the Dao order would definitely receive the recognition of its higher-ups. Moreover, there would absolutely be no lack of rewards. So, that was why he'd proposed such a bet. Once Yang Yi lost and shouted that the ancient sword school was inferior to the Dao order, then he had no doubt that his name would spread throughout Pine Prefecture. Moreover, he would be rewarded by the Dao order. It could be said to be like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. "All right." A smile appeared on the corners of Yang Ye's mouth. Xiao Yu wanted to bring glory for the Dao order, and he similarly wanted to bring glory to the ancient sword school. Because only then would the higher-ups of the ancient sword school assist him from the shadows and stop those old living fossils of the Dao order from acting against him. Wave Obliterator. Yang Yi had just finished speaking when Xiao Yu's spear had instantly transformed into a ray of black light which shot towards him. The spear tore through space all along the way, and the powerful aura it contained caused some of the demon beasts in the surroundings to immediately kneel on the ground. Moreover, the space around it seemed to be unable to endure the force it carried, and the space actually started to show signs of cracking apart. When the spear arrived less than 2 m away from him, Yang Yi finally clenched his right fist and smashed it forward. A gust of wind surged out and smashed against the spear. Bang! A huge explosion resounded as the black spear smashed apart Yang Ye's attack and didn't slow down at all as it continued towards Yang Yi. A slight smile arose on the corners of Xiao Yu's mouth when he witnessed this scene. However, it didn't take long for it to freeze while it grew wider. Because his spear had stopped just a few centimeters away from the center of Yang Ye's forehead, and Yang Ye's hand was holding onto it. Everyone here was astounded, including Xiao Yu. "I've resisted an attack of yours, not try mine." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi stomped the ground with his right foot, and then his figure vanished on the spot. He was in front of Xiao Yu when he appeared once more, and it astounded the latter. Xiao Yu had never expected Yang Ye's speed to be that swift, and he was about to retreat. However, rumblings suddenly resounded in his ear. Xiao Yu hadn't even been able to react before he felt sharp pain come from his body, and then his figure crashed down from midair. Bang! Xiao Yu's figure smashed against the ground, causing it to tremble violently while countless cracks stretched out from beneath him. Everyone here was petrified by this scene. Xiao Yu had lost just like that. He lost without even being able to resist a single attack from Yang Yi. Ming Xianxia's eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Perhaps others weren't aware of how terrifying Xiao Yu was, but she'd witnessed it with her own two eyes. Xiao Yu had once surmounted his realm of cultivation to kill a monarch realm expert, and it had even been a mid-rank monarch realm expert. But she'd never imagined that such a monstrous genius would have been unable to even resist a single attack from Yang Yi. Besides Ming Xianxia, Li Qingyi was beyond shocked as well. After she recovered from the shock she experienced, all that was left was terror. After all, she'd threatened Yang Yi repeatedly in the past. Yu Cangping and Yun Renqing had extremely solemn expressions on their faces as well. While they were half-saints, they still felt extremely fearful when facing such monstrous geniuses. After all, monstrous geniuses usually couldn't be judged by convention, especially monstrous geniuses from platinum rank powers. Yang Yi held the black spear in his hand as he walked over to Xiao Yu. At this moment, Xiao Yu was still alive, but it seemed like something heavy had smashed against his body, causing it to be deformed. If it wasn't for the strength he possessed, he would be dead by now. Yang Yi looked down at Xiao Yu as he spoke indifferently. "You've lost, so fulfill your promise." Xiao Yu stared fixedly at Yang Yi, and while there was resentment in his eyes, it was mostly terror which filled his eyes. "Don't look at me like that," Yang Yi continued. "I don't like people who go back on their word, especially when they are my enemy. I'll say it again, you've lost, so start shouting." How could Xiao Yu dare to do that? So long as he did, then the ancient sword school wouldn't even have to act against him because just the Tao order would make living worse than death for him. Yang Yi waved his right hand and the spatial ring on Xiao Yu's hand flew into his grasp, and then he nodded lightly upon inspecting its contents. He said, "Not bad, you have over 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones. Needless to say, you disciples of the Tao order are truly rich. Right, while this spear is only at the high grade of the Tao rank, it's not bad. It just happens to suit me." When he spoke up to this point, Yang Yi tapped the spear against Xiao Yu's right leg. Crack! The clear and melodious sound of bones breaking resounded. "Ah!" Xiao Yu's eyes opened wide and so did his mouth as a shrill cry shot into the sky. "I do really respect some opponents," Yang Yi said. "But I don't respect some people like you who like to threaten others with women. I heard your Tao order is quite cruel. It just so happens that I want you to see if I'm cruel or not." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi tapped once more with the spear. Crack! The bones and meridians within Xiao Yu's left leg shattered apart. At this moment, he wasn't even able to shout anymore. Yang Yi didn't speak, he just tapped once more with the spear. This time, it struck Xiao Yu's left hand, and then he tapped it against Xiao Yu's right hand. The bones and meridians within Xiao Yu's limbs had been completely shattered, and his face had warped severely from the intense pain he experienced. "Besides the fact that you broke your promise, the most important reason why I'm treating you like this is because you don't respect women," Yang Yi continued. "While they aren't my women, they are my friends. It's fine to disrespect me because I would kill you at the very most. But if you disrespect my friends, then I'll make even death become something difficult for you to attain." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi tapped once more with the spear, and it struck between Xiao Yu's groins. Xiao Yu's eyes were bloodshot, and they simply seemed like they were about to pop out from their sockets. This time, there was only terror left in his eyes, boundless terror. It wasn't just Xiao Yu, even Ming Xianxia, Yu Cangping, and the others had terror in their eyes. While Yang Ye's methods were cruel, it was nothing to them. After all, they were powerful figures, so which one of them hadn't killed in their lives? However, the problem was the person Yang Yi was torturing. He was torturing a disciple of the Tao order in public, and it was like openly slapping the Tao order's face. Needless to say, if Yang Yi survived the trip back to the ancient sword school, then the Tao order's reputation which it had maintained for tens of thousands of years would be lost in a day. Clink! Suddenly, the tune of a zither resounded. It was clear and melodious, and it was like the tune of an immortal brushing through the world, causing the clamorous noise in the surroundings to instantly die down. All of them looked towards the source of the tune, and they saw a white-robed woman who had a veil covering her face standing on the walls of Stellar Sky City. The woman was seated cross-legged, and an ancient white jade zither rested on her lap. Moreover, her fair fingers were playing it gently. The tune of the zither was soft in the beginning, like a stream that was flowing slowly, and it was pleasing to the ear and gladdened the heart. However, it gradually sped up like a storm, and it didn't take long for it to quicken to the point it was like a tempest that surged through the world. It didn't take long for her hands to stop moving, and the tune of the zither immediately vanished. Bang! 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 At the exact same moment, numerous explosions resounded through Xianxia's body as he stood below the city, and it only took an instant for him to be covered in blood. Yang Yi. Feng Meng was almost scared out of her wits when she saw Yang Yi covered in blood, and she immediately leaped off the city walls and ran madly towards Yang Yi. Little Meng. Fan Li was horrified. She leaped off the city walls as well and hurriedly chased after Fan Meng. Fan Meng arrived before Yang Yi, and her tears surged out like a torrent as she gazed at the horrifying state Yang Yi was in. It only took an instant for her face to be covered in tears. It was all my fault. It was all my fault. This wouldn't have happened to you if it wasn't for me. It was my fault. It was all my fault. I'll come accompany you right now. She suddenly drew her sword and swung it towards her throat. No! Fan Li was overwhelmed with sorrow when she witnessed this, and it was like even her soul had been taken from her body. Right when her sword was about to slit her throat, a pair of fingers suddenly clamped down on her sword. At the same time, a voice resounded in her ears. Don't do anything silly. I'm still alive. Ah! Fan Meng was stunned for a moment, and then she completely disregarded the blood that covered Yang Yi as she wrapped her arms around him and cried with absolute sorrow. Fan Li slumped to the ground when she saw this, and it felt like her entire body was completely without a shred of strength. Once they saw that Yang Yi was still alive, all the others looked towards the white-robed woman who sat on the city walls. A white robe. They had no doubt that she was from the Tao Order, and she was a disciple of the heavenly path who wore white robes. Fear suffused all of their eyes as they gazed at her, and it even included the half-saints like Yu Tsongping and Li Xuanji. They naturally knew of the Tao Order, and they'd heard of the Tao Order's heavenly path, earthly path, and mortal path. They frequently came into contact with members of the earthly path and mortal path, but the members of the heavenly path were quite mysterious. They'd thought that the strengths of those in the heavenly path were just slightly superior to the earthly path at most, but the facts of the situation told them that it wasn't just a little, it was a huge amount instead. That disciple of the earthly path, Xiao Yu, was very strong, but Yang Yi had crushed him with a single attack. Yet now, Yang Yi had been heavily injured by a single attack from the woman. At this moment, many people here felt even more reverence towards the Tao Order. The white-robed woman stood up while carrying the zither in her arms, and she spoke slowly. That song was called Peace and Tranquility. I once used it to kill a half-saint without making a sound. I thought that it would be absolutely easy to kill you with it. However, I never imagined that your body is actually strong to such an extent. The tune of my zither broke through the defenses of your flesh, but it couldn't break your bones. I've seen a few body cultivators, but besides those in the demon race, I've never seen a single human who has cultivated their body to such a terrifying extent while at the Exalt realm. Yang Yi patted Fan Meng on the head and said, "Stand aside for now, all right? How about we flee?" Fan Meng spoke softly while tears still hung at the corners of her eyes. She was truly terrified of the white-robed man's strength. Yang Yi smiled. "We can run when I can't win, all right?" Fan Meng hesitated for a while before she nodded. You must remember to run if you can't win." Yang Yi chuckled and pushed her away lightly before walking slowly towards the white-robed woman with his sword in hand. "Your attacks were very unusual to the point that it struck me before I could react. If I'm not wrong, then you've comprehended wind intent, right?" she replied. "Wind intent at the first level of the heaven rank." Yang Yi spoke as he walked towards her. With the wind to cover and conceal it, the sound waves of your zither are capable of moving soundlessly, and it's like the spring breeze when it strikes your opponent. Needless to say, it's really quite extraordinary. Her attack was slightly similar to his third-level heaven rank sword intent. But it was only similar. Its might and unpredictability were far inferior to third-level heaven rank sword intent. After all, his third-level sword intent could merge directly into space and teleport through space to attack his opponents. Sword intent. Yang Yi knew that he had to think of a way to restore his sword intent. Because if he had sword intent to protect himself earlier, then her sound waves wouldn't have been able to injure him at all. She said, "You're very extraordinary as well. Is that so?" Yang Yi stopped moving while a trace of a cold smile could be seen on the corners of his mouth. Needless to say, at this point, the Tao Order has finally sent someone who is capable of slightly arousing my interest. Come, try a swing of my sword instead. Yang Yi vanished on the spot once he finished speaking, and he was already in front of her when he appeared again. His sword pierced straight through her, but it was only an afterimage that he stabbed. Yang Yi wasn't surprised. He turned around and swung his sword again. Hiss! A gust of wind dispersed while Yang Ye's sword trembled slightly instead. Moreover, quite a few cracks appeared on it. Yang Yi raised his head to look over, and he saw that the white-robed woman was standing where he stood just a few moments ago. She bent her legs slightly before resting the jade zither on her thighs, and then she pinched one of its strings and slowly pulled it up. After that, she immediately let go. OM! The space around her instantly split apart while numerous spatial rifts started spreading like a spiderweb all around her. At the same time, a blade of wind that was fine like a dagger suddenly appeared in front of Yang Yi. As soon as it did, countless other blades of wind suddenly and mysteriously appeared around Yang Yi in an instant. In just a moment, Yang Yi was completely drowned beneath countless blades of wind. OM! A sword howl resounded, and then all the blades of wind instantly dispersed. They transformed into specks of energy that fell down from the sky. Shadow strike. As soon as Yang Yi spoke, a ray of blood-red light shot towards the woman. However, the blood-red ray of light stopped when it was less than 2 m away from her because a barrier of wind had appeared before her. Break through. Yang Ye's voice resounded once more, and then the barrier was instantly blasted apart while the ray of blood-red light shot through her. This time, it was still an afterimage, and the woman was over 300 m away. At the same time, she pulled on another string. But right when she was about to let go, Yang Yi had suddenly appeared in front of her. Her pupils constricted slightly as a sword rapidly enlarged within her vision. Hiss! It pierced through her head, but it still struck nothing more than an afterimage. As for her body, it had appeared over 300 m away again. The tune of her zither resounded once more, and then a blade of wind that was over 30 m long and 10 m wide tore through the air as it slashed towards Yang Yi. Yang Yi turned around and swung his sword. Bang! The blade of wind exploded into pieces. How could that be possible? There was a trace of astonishment in her eyes. The strength of your attacks suddenly multiplied. In my entire lifetime. Yang Yi walked towards her as he continued. Amongst those in the same realm of cultivation, there have only been 2 so far who have been able to make me take them seriously. As for you, allow me to say something that isn't arrogant at all. You're still too weak. As soon as he finished speaking, his sword transformed into a ray of light that flashed forward. It was swift, very swift. So swift that even the 3 half-saints here hadn't been able to catch a trace of his sword. This time, Yang Yi hadn't held back. The might of his attack had suddenly multiplied earlier because he'd utilized the critical strike technique. Now, his sword had become this swift because he'd executed lightspeed. While executing 2 techniques in succession caused the meridians in his body to crack open a little more, he really didn't want to waste any more time on her. After all, her speed was too shocking, and he couldn't gain an advantage over her even if he utilized the horizon warp technique. So, he had no other choice but to utilize these techniques. As soon as Yang Ye's attack flashed through the air, the surroundings suddenly fell silent. An instant later, crack! The jade zither in the woman's hand cracked apart, and then another instant passed before it transformed into powder. What a strong and fast attack! As soon as she finished speaking, a stream of blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth, and it instantly dyed her veil red. Meanwhile, Yang Yi had appeared in front of her again. He didn't strike another blow, and he asked instead, "Where's your spatial ring?" He'd intended to just take hers. Unfortunately, he noticed that she wasn't wearing one on her hand. She just gazed at him without speaking a single word. Meanwhile, the tip of Yang Ye's sword pressed against her throat. Yang Yi gazed at her while he spoke with a completely emotionless voice. "Give me something precious in exchange for your life. Otherwise, you'll be losing your head." He really yearned for even more extreme-grade energy stones. After all, regardless of whether it was the improvement of his physical strength or cultivation, both required a huge amount of extreme-grade energy stones, especially when he intended to charge into the monarch realm now. The extreme-grade energy stones he would need to consume was a terrifying number. She gazed at him for quite some time upon hearing him. Right when Yang Ye's sword had slit open a small cut on her throat, she finally moved. However, she didn't withdraw any treasures. She grabbed Yang Ye's sword instead and said, "The disciples of the Tao Order can be killed, but no insult is tolerated." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly pulled Yang Ye's sword towards her throat. Hiss! A stream of blood sprayed out from her throat. Yang Yi withdrew his sword and gazed at her corpse for a long time before he said, "You can be killed, but no insult is tolerated. You're an opponent who was worthy of respect." Yang Yi turned around and walked towards Fan Meng. She was worthy of respect, but not pity or regret, because he was very clearly aware that she would definitely not hold back if she had the chance to kill him. "We'll never stop until you die." Suddenly, a voice resounded from the sky, and the white-robed woman's corpse vanished along with the voice. Yang Yi stopped moving, and then he looked up into the sky and said, "Bring it on!" Yang Yi withdrew his gaze, and then he walked over to Fan Meng before he took her hand and walked towards the city. Suddenly, he stopped moving and looked at Xianxia. "Let's end this matter between you and Stellar Sky City right now, all right?" Xianxia's face fell, and she said, "Young Master Yang, this is between me and the Li clan. You." She hadn't even finished speaking when the tip of a sword pressed against the center of her forehead. It merely pierced her skin a little and caused traces of blood to flow out incessantly, and it instantly turned her face red. "What about now?" Yang Yi gazed at Xianxia with indifference. "Brother Yang, please show mercy." Suddenly, Li Maozhen leaped off the city walls and arrived by Yang Ye's side. "It was I who caused all of this, so allow me to deal with it. All right?" Yang Yi withdrew his sword, and then he made a casual tossing motion. A white jade jar appeared in front of Li Maozhen as he said, "I said that I would definitely save you if I could. While there isn't much monkey wine in there, it should be sufficient to eliminate the poison within you." Li Maozhen's hands around the jar trembled slightly when he heard this. A short while passed before he took a deep breath and bowed slightly to Yang Yi. "No words of thanks are sufficient to express my gratitude. I'll remember this forever." Meanwhile, Li Qingyi and Li Xuanji appeared before Yang Yi. Li Qingyi bowed to Yang Yi, and her voice was filled with gratefulness and excitement. "Thank you. Li Maozhen is right. No words of thanks are sufficient for this. Young brother Yang, if you need my Stellar Sky City's help for anything, you only have to say the word." Li Xuanji cupped his fists to Yang Yi, and his face was covered in gratitude and excitement as well. "Then I won't hold back." Yang Yi continued, "I intend to head to Martial Enlightenment City, and I need to use the teleportation formation in the city." "That's naturally not a problem," Li Xuanji said. "However, I'm afraid that you'll have to wait for a day." Yang Ye's brows knit together slightly. "Why?" he replied. "When the Beastmaster Sect and Broken Saber Villa attacked my city earlier, they were afraid that we would use the teleportation formation to flee, so they used the spies they placed within my city to destroy it. However, you don't have to worry because they didn't destroy the core of the formation. So, I only need a single day to repair it." "A day?" Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment, and then he nodded. "All right, I need to rest as well. Li Xuanji nodded, and then he gazed at Yu Tsongping and Yun Renqing. Both of you aren't leaving yet? Do you want to stay for food? Yu Tsongping and Yun Renqing's faces were quite unsightly, and they shot their gazes towards Ming Xianxia. Li Maozhen gazed at Ming Xianxia and sighed softly. Miss Ming, this can be considered as something that's between us, so why don't we resolve it ourselves? Ming Xianxia gazed at him for a short while before she said, Okay. Yu Tsongping and Yun Renqing didn't hesitate to lead their forces away when they heard her. Actually, they knew that they couldn't breach the city while that fellow Yang Yi was here, so leaving now was definitely the best outcome. While they'd lost quite a huge amount of forces, Ming Xianxia would definitely compensate them. Yang Yi wasn't interested in the enmity between these forces, and the only reason he'd lent Stellar Sky City a hand was mainly because he felt that Li Maozhen was a good guy. He just happened to possess the ability to do it, so he just helped casually. After all, he didn't mind helping a little when he could change a person's fate, especially when it was someone whose character was agreeable to him. Stellar Sky City. Within a room, Yang Yi sat cross-legged on the bed while rows of extreme-grade energy stones laid before him. Actually, while his strength hadn't recovered to its peak, he'd recovered almost 70% of it. If it wasn't for the problem with his meridians, he could still slaughter half-saints even without his sword intent. It could be said that it wasn't his realm of cultivation or sword intent that had placed chains upon his strength. It was his meridians. The only way to resolve this issue was to access the primordial pagoda, and the only way to access the primordial pagoda was to improve his realm of cultivation. He had 20,000 extreme-grade energy stones now, but it was far from sufficient for him to charge into the monarch realm. So, the important matter at hand was to gain even more energy stones. It was too troublesome to earn them slowly, so he decided to take them by force. 4 hours later, Yang Yi had absorbed the energy within almost 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones, and the violet profound energy that was converted from those energy stones had almost completely repaired the injuries caused by him when he forcefully utilized sword energy and techniques earlier. Suddenly, Yang Ye's eyes opened wide, and then wild joy appeared on his face, because he noticed that the tiny vortex had actually started spinning. It was revolving. Yang Yi almost leaped up with joy. He forcefully suppressed the excitement and happiness in his heart, and then he immersed his consciousness into his body. At this moment, the tiny vortex seemed to be in the same state as when he'd just obtained it. It was revolving slowly, and it completely absorbed all the profound energy within him. So, Yang Yi hurriedly withdrew some extreme-grade energy stones when he noticed that. Another hour passed, and all the other 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones he had were completely exhausted. However, the primordial pagoda was still in the form of the tiny vortex. Yang Ye's face fell. His intuition told him that not just 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones were insufficient, even 100,000 would be unable to transform the tiny vortex back into the primordial pagoda. A long time passed before Yang Yi shook his head. He knew that he couldn't be impatient. In the end, it was still a good thing, because the primordial pagoda had started to react to the profound energy within him, and this allowed him to see hope. Now, it was only a matter of time. Brother Yang, may I come in? Li Qingyi's voice suddenly arose from outside the door. Yang Yi opened the door and Li Qingyi was standing right in front of him. At this moment, she was still wearing a green dress. She was gorgeous, and her bearing was tranquil and elegant. Li Qingyi asked, "Did I disturb you?" Yang Yi shook his head and walked into the room. "How are little Meng and her sister?" She answered, "They've fallen asleep, very sound sleep." Yang Yi fell silent. He knew that they'd been worried and anxious every single day throughout this period. Not to mention sleeping, they didn't even dare doze off. He'd thought about leaving them here at Stellar Sky City, but he'd discarded such a thought in the end. The Tao Order was aware that they were with him, so if he were to leave them here, then Stellar Sky City's strength would be utterly insufficient to protect them. Moreover, it might bring calamity down upon Stellar Sky City. The only power that could protect them was the ancient sword school. So he had no choice but to take them there. "Thank you for helping my brother," Li Qingyi continued. "You didn't just save him, You saved my Li clan as well. It was nothing. Yang Yi gazed at her and said, You didn't come here just to thank me, right? She said, Can't I just come visit you? Yang Yi gazed at her for a short while before he said, Actually, I felt quite a bit of admiration towards you when I found out that you didn't hesitate to steal the monkey wine to save your older brother. That was also the true reason why I showed mercy that day. Li Qingyi asked, Why? He replied, I have a younger sister. I would definitely stop at nothing to save her as well. All right, let's stop this here and get to the point. She glanced at him and said, Do you want to change the path you are taking and avoid martial enlightenment city? Yang Yi frowned. Why? She pondered deeply for a long time before she said, We received information that the members of the Tao Order are waiting for you there, and it might not just be one. Moreover, all of them wear white robes and might be stronger than the white-robed woman from before. Their true motive might not be to kill you, but to delay your journey and wait for a person to arrive there. Yang Yi asked, Who? She replied, The executioner, Man Ba. You should have heard of him, right? Yang Yi shook his head. No. Li Qingyi was at a loss for words. A short while passed before she took a deep glance at Yang Yi and said, He's very famous in Pine Prefecture. He joined the Tao Order while at the Spirit Realm, and he became a member of the Mortal Path. Once he attained the Exalt Realm, he was instantly promoted to a member of the Earthly Path, and he even became the #1 expert here. Not only is his strength formidable, he's a very violent and vicious person as well. In the past, minor conflict arose between him and a gold rank power called All Heaven City, and he slaughtered the entire city in response. He killed almost 1 million people during that battle. Oh! Yang Yi started walking forward as he spoke. Li Qingyi was stunned by this, and then she quickly followed him and said, Aren't you going to ask about his strength? Yang Yi asked, How strong is he? She gazed at him for a short while before she smiled bitterly. Do you know that Man Ba would definitely tear you up into pieces if he found out about the disregard you just displayed? Yang Yi stopped, and then he turned around to look at her. I think he wouldn't even dare to face me if he knew of my past accomplishments. I don't believe that. Li Qingyi said, I know you're very strong, and I've personally witnessed that. But no matter how strong you are you stronger than the Sword Emperor Lu Wanner? She attained the heaven rank in sword intent a very long time ago, and she might have even attained the 2nd level by now. After all, an expert of the ancient sword school once said that if Lu Wanner and Man Ba were in the same realm of cultivation, then Lu Wanner might not be able to defeat him. Lu Wanner. A slight smile appeared on the corners of Yang Ye's mouth. He hadn't imagined that the little girl who would seek guidance from him every single day in the past would be thriving so well in the radiant dimension. Li Qingyi said, Why are you smiling? I'm thinking how Lu Wanner would look if she saw me. Yang Yi smiled. Li Qingyi was shocked. You know her. Meanwhile, Li Xuanji suddenly appeared in front of Yang Yi. He glanced at his granddaughter, and then gazed at Yang Yi and said, Young brother Yang, the teleportation formation has been repaired. However, I presume you're clearly aware that Martial Enlightenment City is. Why don't you go around it? It's fine. Yang Yi gazed at Li Qingyi and said, Help me bring Fan Meng and Fan Li over. Li Qingyi gazed at him for quite a long while, and she sighed softly when she saw Yang Ye's gaze that seemed to allow no refusal. She turned around and left. It didn't take long for Li Qingyi to bring Fan Li and Fan Meng to Yang Yi. Yang Yi took Fan Meng's hand, and then walked over to the teleportation formation under Li Xuanji's lead. It didn't take long for them to arrive at a teleportation platform. Li Xuanji spoke solemnly, Young brother Yang, while Man Ba is only at the Exalt realm, he has killed half-saints in the past. Half-saints. A faint smile curled up on the corners of Yang Ye's mouth. I once grew tired of killing them. As he spoke, he'd pulled Fan Meng along and entered the teleportation formation with Fan Li. A ray of light flickered, and then they vanished on the spot. Martial Enlightenment City. While it was a gold rank power, it wasn't renowned throughout Pine Prefecture, because there were countless gold rank powers throughout the prefecture. However, Martial Enlightenment City had become the center of the prefecture's attention today. A disciple of the ancient sword school had destroyed the Tao Order's Hell's Coffin, killed 2 of its disciples from the earthly path, and a disciple from the heavenly path. Could be said to be the first time that the ancient sword school had slapped the Tao Order so hard. The ancient sword school had been enemies with the Tao Order for many years, and their disciples would fight practically every single time they met. Over the years, both sides won and lost on occasion. But this time it wasn't just a simple battle, and it wasn't just a matter of victory or defeat. This time it was a matter of life and death. The death of a few was nothing to powers like the Tao Order and ancient sword school. In their opinion, their disciples could die, but they couldn't lose face. This time, Yang Yi had slapped the Tao Order's face really hard, and it could be said that Yang Yi had stomped on its face. So, if Yang Yi really was able to return to the ancient sword school, then there was no doubt that the Tao Order's face wouldn't have just been stomped on. It would have been completely and truly trampled on. Moreover, from that time onward, the Tao Order would be eternally beneath the ancient sword school. Not only that, but it would also be unable to hold its head up high before the other platinum rank powers as well. So, the Tao Order was determined to kill Yang Yi, and he couldn't just die normally. At this moment, the cultivators from all over the prefecture were standing around the teleportation platform in Martial Enlightenment City. However, the most striking of them all were the 2 groups of people who stood on the left and right of the teleportation platform. The group on the left consisted of 5 people, and all of them wore white robes. Obviously, they were disciples of the Tao Order. As for the group on the right, they had 5 members as well. All of them wore green clothes and carried sword chests on their backs. They were clearly from the ancient sword school. TSK. Not only have the 3 swords in the Exalt realm of the ancient sword school come here, even the slow sword Wu Yanzhong is here. Hehe. Looks like the ancient sword school is determined to fight the Tao Order to the end this time. The slow sword Wu Yanzhong? The same Wu Yanzhong who used the fundamental sword technique to surmount his realm of cultivation and kill a half-saint. Besides him, who else is worthy of being called the slow sword? He killed a half-saint with the fundamental sword technique while he was still at the high rank of the Exalt realm all those years ago. From that moment onwards, he became renowned because of that battle. Now, a few years have passed and he's at the Monarch realm. His current strength is probably impossible to fathom. Looks like the ancient sword school sent him to support Yang Yi because they don't want that fellow, Yang Yi, to be bullied or threatened by the Tao Order's experts. TSK. Looks like the ancient sword school really is determined to protect Yang Yi. Suddenly, the white-robed figures on the left of the teleportation platform had suddenly stood up, and then everyone watched as they bowed respectfully towards a certain direction. The others here looked in that direction, and they saw a white-robed woman who held a black sickle in her hand walking slowly towards them. The woman seemed to be around the age of 20. She had pretty and delicate features, and a slim figure. As she walked slowly with that sickle in her grasp, she seemed like the god of death from the netherworld, and she emanated a heavy pressure upon everyone around her. The god of death, Kong Lian. Someone exclaimed involuntarily. According to rumor, someone will definitely die wherever she goes. The Tao Order actually sent her. What exactly does it intend to do? Do they intend to fight the ancient sword school right now? This is getting serious. The members of the ancient sword school revealed solemn expressions when they saw her. If Yang Yi survives, all 5 of you will still die. If Yang Yi dies, all of you will die with him. The woman waved the sickle in her hand as she walked over to the members of the ancient sword school, and she gazed at them as if she was looking at corpses. Moreover, her tone was simply beyond doubt. Feel free to try if you have the ability. The man who led the group from the ancient sword school gazed at her as he spoke in a carefree manner. I heard that you, the slow sword, show signs of returning to simplicity. I've wanted to experience that for myself for a very long time. Kong Lian continued. I hope you don't disappoint me. Any time. Wu Yanzhong nodded. Many cultivators in the surroundings started quietly moving backwards, and they opened up a huge empty space there. At this moment, only the members of the ancient sword school and Tao Order resided in that empty space. Right when the atmosphere between them was tense, the circle of light around the teleportation formation trembled violently, and everyone immediately shot their gazes over. It didn't take long for a man and two women to appear there. The gazes of everyone descended onto the man. Yang Yi, I'm a little scared. Fan Meng tightened her grip on Yang Ye's hand while her voice was trembling slightly. She'd known what would happen here before they even teleported over here. Yang Yi chuckled lightly and said, "Little Meng, remember that as a sword cultivator, you shouldn't fear the heavens, nor the earth, or the saints or immortals of this world." Well said. Wu Yanzhong and the other members of the ancient sword school walked over to Yang Yi. Wu Yanzhong sized him up before he said, "Do as you please. No one will be able to bully you with a higher cultivation while you're here. I guarantee that with life." Yang Yi gazed at Wu Yanzhong and the others for a short while, and then he said, "Thank you." After that, he walked over to the members of the Tao Order and said, "The Tao Order intends to fight me, Yang Yi, until one of us is annihilated, right?" Kong Lin said, "Do you think that you can survive?" Yang Yi replied with a question instead. "Are all of you going to come at me at once, or will you fight me one by one?" Everyone here was flabbergasted, and it included the members of the ancient sword school. All of them together? Many thought that their ears were deceiving them. After all, those were disciples of the Tao Order, and they were said to be extraordinarily monstrous geniuses who could surmount their realms of cultivation to kill powerful experts. However, Yang Yi had actually asked them to attack him at once. Moreover, it even included Kong Lin, who was at the monarch realm. Arrogant. Absolutely arrogant. That was the first impression everyone had of Yang Yi. "Are you sure that you aren't joking?" Kong Lin stared fixedly at Yang Yi as she spoke. Moreover, the sickle in her grasp had started to spin swiftly. As it spun, even the space around it had been slit apart, causing numerous black circles to appear around it. Yang Yi chuckled lightly and said, "Do you know? I'm already annoyed by all of you. One comes today, another comes tomorrow. If this goes on, then I'll be utterly annoyed even if all of you aren't. Since it's like that, why don't you just immediately send someone you think is strong? To be honest, I'm actually really happy that all of you are constantly sending wealth and your lives to me in succession, because I'm really poor. However, I really don't want to waste time anymore with your Tao Order as well. So, why don't all of you fight me at once?" He'd already recovered most of his strength now, and the thing he wanted to do the most was look for Xiao Yushi and Nanjing Ding Xiaoyao and the others. Besides that, he intended to look for the Zhuge clan which Elder Mu belonged to. He could be said that there were a huge number of things waiting for him, and he didn't have time to waste on the Tao Order. Yang Yi replied, "I'm not joking. All of you can fight me at once. Don't waste everyone's time anymore." A wisp of ferocity arose on the corners of Kong Lien's mouth. She was about to attack when a young man behind her said, "Senior Sister Kong, allow me. Our Tao Order would still lose face if you killed him." The reason he dared to speak like that was exactly because of that. Kong Lien took a few steps forward, and she stopped only a few centimeters away from Yang Yi. A fierce smile still remained on the corners of her mouth as she said, "If you survive today, then I'll leave the Tao Order of my own free will, and I'll definitely kill you even if I have to go to the ends of the world. Do you know?" Yang Yi said, "Many people wanted to kill me in the past. Yet now, the grass on their graves are probably even taller than you. Is that so?" Kong Lien suddenly cracked a smile as she said, "I hope you don't die. Otherwise, I would be very conflicted and depressed, because I've never felt such urgency to kill someone." Are you done with the nonsense?" Yang Yi suddenly interrupted her and said, "If you aren't going to attack, then fuck off. Don't waste my time." She gazed at him for a short while before she said, "I hope you'll still be able to remain so arrogant later." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around to gaze at the man who stood behind her. "Lin Kai, take it slow. Don't kill him right away." Lin Kai spoke indifferently. "I'll keep him breathing for you, senior sister." Kong Lin nodded slightly before moving aside. Meanwhile, Wu Yanzhong suddenly walked over to Yang Yi and said, His palm techniques are extremely formidable. He once relied on it to fight a half-saint realm demon beast. You must not underestimate him. Yang Yi nodded, and then he seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Is Lu Wanner in the ancient sword school right now?" Wu Yanzhong was stunned by this question, and then he nodded. Senior Sister Lu is there indeed. However, she's in closed-door cultivation to charge into the half-saint realm. No one is allowed to disturb her. Do you know her? So that's why. Yang Yi came to a slight understanding. Logically speaking, he had gained quite a bit of reputation since he arrived at Pine Prefecture. So Lu Wanner and Nanjing and the others should know that he'd arrived here. Especially Lu Wanner. After all, he'd caused such a commotion that even alarmed the higher-ups of the ancient sword school. So it didn't make sense for her to be unaware. Now he finally understood why. It turned out that Lu Wanner was in closed-door cultivation. But he was still quite puzzled. After all, wasn't it impossible for a Nanjing, Nether Maiden, Ding Xiaoyao, Xiao Yushi, and the others to be in closed-door cultivation at the same time? If they heard of him, then they would have definitely come to find him. However, none of them had come until now. Are they not in Pine Prefecture? Yang Ye's brows knit together tightly. You can launch the first attack. Suddenly, Lin Kao interrupted Yang Ye's thoughts. Yang Yi glanced at Lin Kai and said, "How many extreme-grade energy stones did you bring with you?" Lin Kai replied, "Around 200,000. I've been accumulating them for a few years now. But do you have the ability to take them from me?" Yang Yi flipped his palm, and the ancient sheath appeared in his grasp. He sheathed his sword and said, "I don't like to waste time. So, let's determine life and death with a single move." As soon as he finished speaking, his sword left its sheath, and then the Dao rank sword in his grasp shattered along with a sword howl that shot into the sky. The sword shattered, and a ray of light flashed. Lin Kai's body was instantly split into two, and his internal organs sprayed all over the ground along with his blood. It was truly a bloody scene. It was an instant kill, with just a single attack. The surroundings fell silent, deathly silent. All the spectators gazed at Yang Yi with disbelief, and it was like they'd been petrified. No one had expected Lin Kai to actually be killed from a single attack and without the ability to fight back at all, and this even included the members of the ancient sword school and Kong Lian. After all, Lin Kai was a monstrous genius at the high rank of the Exalt realm, who'd once remained undefeated in a battle with a demon beast at the half-saint realm. Yet now, he'd actually been unable to even resist a single swing of Yang Ye's sword. It made them wonder if Yang Yi was a high-rank half-saint. Yang Yi stretched out his hand and waved it, and then the spatial ring on Lin Kai's finger flew into his grasp. He nodded slightly upon inspecting its contents. Because Lin Kai hadn't lied, and there really were 200,000 extreme-grade energy stones within it. After he put it away, Yang Yi gazed at the other members of the Dao Order and said, "Playing with all of you is like playing games with children. It's completely meaningless. But it's fine since all of you are quite rich, yet I just happen to lack extreme-grade energy stones. Now, all I want to know is if all of you are going to attack me together, and will you fight me one by one?" It was arrogant. Absolutely arrogant. Needless to say, what Yang Yi said was extremely arrogant, but everyone felt that he was qualified to do so. In the opinion of the spectators, Yang Yi was acting arrogantly because he was intentionally slapping the Dao Order's face. But in Yang Ye's opinion, he was merely stating a fact. It wasn't that these geniuses of the Dao Order were weak. It was the Dao Order who'd underestimated his strength. Because he was once at the 9th rank of the Monarch realm. Moreover, his combat strength had been on par with mid-grade half-saints of Profounder Continent, and he could even fight the high-grade half-saints there. However, the Dao Order had sent Exalt realm experts to kill him. Under such circumstances, the Dao Order was falling into a lethal trap. "It seems that my eyes betrayed me," Kong Lian spoke in a heavy voice. Just that attack alone allowed her to realize that Yang Ye's strength was at the same level as her, and it might even be stronger than her. Because even she couldn't instantly kill Lin Kai. Yang Yi glanced at the members of the Dao Order and said, "Since no one is stepping forward, then I'm leaving." As he spoke, he gazed at Fan Meng and Fan Li. The two of them understood his intentions and hurriedly walked over to his side. Yang Yi took Fan Meng's hand and started walking forward. A white-robed young man from the Dao Order was about to step forward, but he was stopped by Kong Lian. "You aren't a match for him," the young man spoke solemnly. "Our Dao Order would definitely be laughed at if he's allowed to leave just like that." "'Cause our Dao Order to be laughed at? Who does he think he is?" Suddenly, a furious howl that sounded like the roar of a wild beast resounded, and then a sharp explosion resounded in the air before a golden ray of saber energy slashed down from the sky. The target was Yang Yi. A cold glow flashed through Yang Ye's eyes as he clenched his right fist tightly, and then he smashed it towards the saber energy. Bang! The saber energy was blasted into dispersal, and a powerful wave of energy swiftly swept out from there, causing the ground in the surroundings to be instantly cracked apart. All the spectators were astounded by this scene, and they hurriedly moved backwards. Fan Li swiftly pulled Fan Meng back with her as well, because if they were to continue staying by Yang Ye's side under such circumstances, then they would only be a burden for him. Once the wave of energy dispersed, a man had appeared within their fields of vision. The man had a tall and robust figure which was at least 3 times larger than an ordinary person. Just a single arm of his was as thick as an adult's thigh, while his eyes seemed like they were the size of fists. Besides that, he had a huge saber that matched his size resting on his shoulder. The man didn't feel like he was human but a violent beast from deep within the mountains. "Man Ba! It's Man Ba!" Some were shocked. Man Ba could be considered to be very renowned throughout Pine Prefecture, and he was an extremely terrifying existence as well. He was cruel, ruthless, and insane. Perhaps he wasn't the strongest amongst the younger generation of the Dao Order, but he was definitely the one whom others feared the most, and it was none other than because he was a complete madman. Man Ba glanced at Yang Yi, yet his gaze descended onto Fan Meng and Fan Li in the end, and there was undisguised lust within his eyes. "The two of you belong to Yang Yi? Ha! He's really quite lucky to actually have such gorgeous little beauties to accompany him all along the way. Don't worry, once I twist off Yang Ye's head, I'll take good care of both of you in his stead. I guarantee that I'll make both of you unable to get off the bed every single night." Ha! As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly swung his saber at Yang Yi, and a strand of saber energy tore through the air and instantly arrived in front of Yang Yi. Yang Ye's expression remained unchanged as he smashed his fist forward, and the saber energy was instantly blasted into pieces. Yang Yi waved his hand, and a ray of light shot out from within the sword chest of a disciple from the ancient sword school and fell into his grasp. After that, Yang Yi started walking towards Man Ba. "Looks like your Dao Order doesn't just intend to kill me, it doesn't even intend to let my friends go." Bang! Man Ba struck his saber against the ground, and the ground instantly shook violently while countless cracks started spreading swiftly. There was a trace of madness and ferocity on the corners of his mouth as he spoke. "Of course not. Don't worry, I won't kill you later. I'll make you kneel before the city gates. Do you know what you'll be doing while kneeling there? You'll be watching your women accept their customers." When he spoke up to this point, he roared with laughter and pointed at both Fan Meng and Fan Li. "Men in the city, hear me. I'll cripple their cultivations later and make them lay before the city gates. You only have to pay a single energy stone to spend some time with them. Remember, only a single energy stone." Ha! Fan Li and Fan Meng's faces had turned slightly pale. Fan Meng held tightly onto Fan Li's hand while her figure trembled slightly. While Fan Li was comparatively calm, there was terror in her eyes. In their eyes, the Dao Order was an existence that was countless times stronger than their Fan clan. Or it should be said that it was an existence which they had to look up to in the past. Yet now, this existence which they had to look up to in the past intended to kill them, so how could they not feel fearful? Yang Yi started smiling, and he smiled at Man Ba as he said, "Since I arrived at the Radiant Dimension, it's the first time I've had the thought of annihilating the Dao Order." "Annihilate my Dao Order?" Suddenly, cold laughter resounded from high above. "Yang Yi, you really are an extraordinary genius. You haven't comprehended sword intent yet, aren't any weaker to those sword cultivators who've comprehended heaven-rank sword intent. However, annihilate my Tao order? Who do you think you are? If it wasn't a fight between juniors, I would have killed you with just a swing of my palm. Xianxia replied, Then why don't we wait and see? Then we will. The voice resounded from the sky. Let me see if you, Xianxia, can destroy my Tao order, and I'm even more curious about whether you'll be able to survive today. Man Ba, just as you said, don't kill him later. My Tao order will let the world witness the consequences of going against us. Don't worry, Elder. Man Ba smiled. I won't kill him later. I'll cripple him and make him a eunuch. After that, I'll make him kneel before the city gates and watch how his women moan beneath other men all day and night. Ha ha ha. Xianxia turned around to look at Fan Meng and Fan Li. Are you too afraid? Fan Meng immediately shook her head and said, I'm afraid of nothing when you're here. You'll be afraid in a moment. Man Ba laughed ferociously, and then he gazed at Kong Lian. Senior Sister Kong, let's kill all of these disciples of the ancient sword school, all right? We won't bully the weak, and we'll fight against those at a similar realm of cultivation. Let's allow the world to see if the Tao order or the ancient sword school is stronger. Kong Lian spoke solemnly. He's very strong. No matter how strong he is, can he be stronger than me? As soon as Man Ba finished speaking, a terrifying pressure suddenly surged out from within him, and then space seemed like it was boiling and started to ripple. First level heaven rank slaughter intent. The expressions of everyone here turned pale. Ha ha ha. Man Ba raised his saber and pointed it at Xianxia. Kill! Kong Lian and the others immediately attacked when they heard him. But they didn't attack Xianxia. They attacked the other disciples of the ancient sword school instead. Xianxia, don't worry about us and fight your battle. So long as you return alive to the ancient sword school, then it would be worth it even if we die. As soon as Wu Yanzhong finished speaking, a ray of light instantly charged out from within the sword chest on his back and shot towards Kong Lian. At the same time, the other 4 disciples behind him raised their swords and attacked the other disciples of the Tao order. Xianxia, I'll kill you in 10 moves. Man Ba roared furiously as he shot explosively towards Xianxia, and his saber carried the might to split the world apart as it slashed down towards Xianxia. The force carried by the saber was so powerful that it pressured the space around it to the point of warping, and it was extremely shocking. All the disciples of the Tao order here shall die today. Xianxia flipped his right palm, and a sword appeared in his grasp. After that, he swiftly made a flicking motion with it. Clang! The saber and sword collided with each other. Both instantly trembled violently while space even shattered apart. I'll cripple you with one attack. Xianxia stabbed his sword into the ancient sheath before swiftly drawing it. A sword howl shot into the sky as the sword shattered, and then a ray of light flashed. Man Ba's face turned grim, and he didn't dare act carelessly in the slightest. He immediately took his saber in both hands before slashing it down swiftly. Heaven Breaker! As soon as his voice resounded, a wave of saber energy shot out from the tip of the saber, and then it smashed against the sword energy. However, everyone here watched with astonishment as Man Ba's saber energy was instantly cut into 2, as if it was just a thin piece of paper. How could this be possible? Man Ba was shocked and he was about to dodge. Unfortunately, it was too late, and Yang Ye's sword energy was about to smash his chest. Man Ba was horrified and quickly placed his saber before his chest to block the attack. Bang! The saber shook violently yet didn't shatter. However, Man Ba, who stood behind it, was blasted flying. Man Ba wasn't dead, of course, but that strike had covered him in blood. Moreover, disbelief still remained in his eyes because that attack of his was something that was even impossible for a half-saint to destroy with ease. Suddenly, Xianxia appeared in front of him. Xianxia stomped his foot down on Man Ba's face yet didn't even look at him. Xianxia looked up into the sky instead and said, Tao order, just take a look. I can kill your disciples like dogs. I can kill them at will. You don't believe me? I'll demonstrate it once more. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi waved his hand and a sword suddenly flew into his grasp. He sheathed it before swiftly drawing it. The sword shattered while a ray of light flashed, and then a white-robed disciple of the Tao Order was instantly chopped into two at the waist. Sword! Come to me! As soon as he spoke, another sword flew into his grasp. I'm afraid you might have not seen it clearly, so I'll demonstrate it again. As soon as he finished speaking, his sword left its sheath and shattered. Meanwhile, a white-robed disciple in the distance was instantly killed. Sword! Yang Ye's voice resounded once more. The sword entered the sheath before Yang Yi drew swiftly once more. Hiss! Besides Kong Lian, who was at the monarch realm, all the other white-robed disciples of the Tao Order were slashed into two. At this moment, the minds of everyone here had gone blank, including Kong Lian, and Kong Lian's eyes were filled with disbelief. At this moment, the disciples of the ancient sword school were beyond shocked. They as well had never imagined that Yang Yi was actually so terrifying. My God! All of them were white-robed disciples of the Tao Order, but he killed them like he was chopping through vegetables. As for the spectators, most didn't even dare believe their eyes. The surroundings had gone silent, absolutely silent. I admit that we underestimated you. We severely underestimated you. Meanwhile, a low voice sounded out from the sky, and the voice carried a trace of killing intent yet was mostly filled with shock. Yang Yi laughed with ridicule before he looked down at Man Ba. At this moment, Man Ba was staring at him with eyes that were filled with ferocity. It wasn't that Man Ba didn't want to move, but it was that he couldn't move at all. Yang Ye's foot was on his stomach, and it was like a mountain pressing down upon him, causing him to be on the verge of suffocation. I'm a very narrow-minded person, and I can't stand anything I dislike being in front of me. Yang Yi looked down at Man Ba and said, "What you said earlier truly displeased me. So, I've decided to make even death a dream for you." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi raised his sword and stabbed it into Man Ba's mouth before shaking it lightly. Man Ba's tongue was instantly chopped into bits. At the same time, his foot pressed down, and a muffled explosion resounded from Man Ba's stomach. He'd naturally chopped off Man Ba's tongue and destroyed his dantian, so that Man Ba couldn't take his own life. How dare you! A furious howl resounded in the sky, and then a huge palm tore through space and immediately appeared above Yang Yi. It was about to claw Yang Yi into pieces when a ray of sword energy suddenly shot out from the sky. It was extremely swift and instantly struck the enormous palm, causing it to tremble violently before quickly shrinking back. Nan Gong Tian. A low voice that carried violent killing intent resounded through the sky. Qing Wuji, aren't you ashamed of yourself for interfering in the business of the younger generation? As soon as this voice finished resounding through the air, an old man who wore a robe which was a mix of green and white appeared in the sky above everyone. At the same time, an old man appeared in front of him. The old man wore a gray robe, and his entire body was enveloped beneath his robe, causing it to be impossible to discern his appearance. The gray-robed man spoke in a deep voice. Nangong Tian, looks like your ancient sword school intends to act against my Tao Order? Not at all. Nangong Tian spoke indifferently. Isn't it normal for the juniors to fight each other? That fellow Man Ba from your Tao Order killed numerous disciples of my ancient sword school in the past. But my ancient sword school didn't say a word, right? If they are killed in a battle with someone in the same realm of cultivation, then it was because they lacked skill and ability. If a disciple of my ancient sword school died at his hands, then it was because they didn't train well enough. Yet now, when a disciple of your Tao Order lost to a disciple of my ancient sword school, a senior like you actually intends to interfere. Needless to say, it's truly a humiliation. When he spoke up to this point, Nangong Tian pointed at Yang Yi and said, "All I'll say is that so long as a disciple of your Tao Order who's in the same realm of cultivation as him is able to kill him, then you can do as you please with him. My ancient sword school won't say a word about it. However, if your Tao Order intends to act shamelessly and intends to bully the young, then while my ancient sword school might not be able to keep him alive, we guarantee that we'll kill every single genius your Tao Order obtains in the future." The ancient sword school couldn't be said to have a close relationship with Yang Yi, but Yang Yi absolutely couldn't be allowed to be bullied and killed by someone at a higher realm of cultivation. Otherwise, it wouldn't just disappoint the countless disciples of the ancient sword school, it would be equivalent to causing the ancient sword school to lose an extraordinary genius in the sword Dao and become the laughingstock of the entire prefecture. It could be said that Yang Ye's fate was related to the Dao Order's honor, but it was also related to the ancient sword school's honor. The gray-robed old man fell silent. Meanwhile, Yang Yi had started moving instead. He dragged along Man Ba, who was on the verge of death, while he walked forward, step by step. Suddenly, he stopped and gazed at Wu Yanzhong. "Senior brother, please bring along the corpses of those other disciples of the Dao Order." Wu Yanzhong glanced at Yang Yi before he nodded. Just like that, Wu Yanzhong and the others each dragged a corpse along as they followed Yang Yi. "How dare you!" The gray-robed man was furious when he witnessed this scene. However, a ray of sword energy tore through the sky and appeared in front of him. "Brother Qing, we haven't sparred for a long time. Since we were able to meet each other today, then why don't we spar right now?" As soon as Nangong Tian finished speaking, sword energy instantly covered the sky. The two extraordinary experts were fighting in the sky, but Yang Yi didn't stop at all. He just dragged Man Ba along as he walked step by step. Man Ba gazed resentfully at Yang Yi and wanted to move, but he couldn't move anymore, because Yang Yi had crippled his limbs and the meridians within them, so he couldn't take his own life even if he wanted to. All along the way, countless people followed behind Yang Yi as they were curious of Yang Ye's intentions. The crowd gradually realized where Yang Yi was headed, because it was in the direction of the city gates. Suddenly, Kong Lian stood before Yang Yi and the others. Kong Lian didn't speak a single word, but the black sickle in her hand started spinning madly, while strands of terrifying aura surged out from within her. Even space started to ripple before the aura she emanated. Kong Lian raised her sickle slowly and pointed it at Yang Yi. "You're very strong. I noticed that you hadn't utilized your full strength just now. I'm truly really curious about how strong an Exalt Realm Profounder like you are." Meanwhile, Wu Yanzhong arrived in front of Yang Yi while an iron sword appeared in his grasp. "Kong Lian, bullying someone in a lower realm of cultivation is a disgrace. Didn't you want to experience my slow sword? I'll allow you to experience it right now." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Yanzhong didn't wait for her refusal, and just stabbed his sword forward in a very simple manner. It was a very ordinary attack, extremely ordinary. It was just like something common that had nothing special about it. However, it was exactly such an attack that caused Kong Lian's expression to change. "Your sword technique isn't bad." Yang Yi nodded, and then he continued forward while dragging Man Ba along. He took a few steps before he suddenly stopped, and then he gazed at Kong Lian, who was in fierce battle with Wu Yanzhong. "I'll allow you to witness it if you survive." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi continued walking towards the city gates. The disciples of the ancient sword school who were following behind him quickly took the corpse that Wu Yanzhong had been dragging along before following Yang Yi. "How dare you? You actually dare to humiliate my Dao Order?" Suddenly, a white-robed man flashed over from afar. However, he hadn't even gotten close when a strand of sword energy slashed him into two. "Yang Yi!" Fan Meng was shocked, and she hurriedly ran over to Yang Yi, because blood was actually seeping out of the corner of Yang Ye's mouth. Yang Yi shook his head and said, "There's no need to worry, it's just a small issue. Right, remember to take the spatial rings off those corpses. All of those are treasures." Are you really fine?" Fan Meng was on the verge of crying because he didn't seem like he was fine no matter how she looked at it. "Don't worry, I know my limits." Yang Yi smiled, and then he turned his head to gaze at a disciple of the ancient sword school behind him. "Brother, isn't dragging them like this a little too troublesome? How about we get a rope and string their corpses together? Wouldn't that be easier?" "I'm Lin Xiao," the man continued. "Are you sure you want to do that?" Yang Yi nodded. "Of course." He took a deep and long glance at Yang Yi before he nodded. It didn't take long for all the other disciples of the Dao Order besides Man Ba to be tied together like a meat skewer. Countless people in the surroundings were astounded by such a scene. He intends to completely humiliate the Tao order. Obviously, it was impossible for any reconciliation to be achieved between Yang Yi and the Tao order. Just like that, Yang Yi dragged Man Ba along as he walked towards the city gates while Lin Xiao stood behind him with a rope in his hand. The corpses of 5 white-robed disciples of the Tao order were tied together on that rope. Yang Yi seemed to be in a comparatively better state because he was still as calm and composed as he was before this. However, tempestuous waves of emotions were surging through the hearts of Lin Xiao and the others. The ancient sword school and Tao order had fought countless times, and the disciples of both sides had killed and insulted the other. However, it was the first time that the Tao order had been humiliated like this. At this moment, the worry in their hearts was far greater than the happiness and excitement they felt. Because the slightest mistake might cause war to erupt between the ancient sword school and the Tao order. If 2 platinum rank sects were to start fighting, then it would affect the entire prefecture. Ancient sword school. You're courting death. Suddenly, another voice resounded from the distant crowd, and then a figure shot towards Yang Ye's group. Sword! Yang Yi waved his hand, and then a sword suddenly flew out from the crowd and transformed into a ray of light that entered Yang Ye's grasp. He sheathed it and drew it swiftly. The sword shattered, a ray of light flashed, and then death descended. Just like that, there was another corpse tied on the string. Disciples of the Tao order shot out incessantly from within the crowd. There were those who wore white robes, black robes, and even red robes. However, all of them were tied to the rope without exception. Now, there were at least over 40 corpses tied to it. All of them belonged to the Tao order. It didn't take long for Yang Ye's group to reach the city gates. Yang Yi placed Man Ba on the ground before he turned around to gaze at Lin Xiao. Brother Lin, help me get over a dozen beasts of desire. Lin Xiao's expression changed slightly. He glanced at Man Ba, and then he pondered deeply before he said, "It only takes a single swing of the sword. There's really no need for that." Yang Yi shook his head and said, "That would be letting him off too easily. He can insult me because I would just kill him at the very most. But since he insulted my friends, then I'll make even death something difficult for him to attain. Didn't he say that he would humiliate my friends? Now, I'm going to make him personally experience how it feels." Terror finally appeared in Man Ba's eyes when he heard this. Lin Xiao gazed at Yang Yi for a short while, and then he nodded and left. Yang Yi walked over to the end of the rope, and then he grabbed it before leaping up onto the city wall, and then he tied the rope there. Just like that, a string of corpses was hung on the city walls of Martial Enlightenment City. Meanwhile, Lin Xiao had returned, and he'd brought over a dozen beasts of desire with him. Yang Yi pointed at Man Ba. The beasts instantly howled before charging over to Man Ba. Yang Yi raised his head and looked up into the sky. "Didn't your Tao order want to play? Then let's play." "All right, we'll play with you." A voice resounded from the sky. It was the voice of a saint.